But hopefully the man that we're about to talk about will indeed pardon him, because like I said, in my opinion, Edward Snowden didn't do anything wrong. He exposed the people who were doing wrong. The people who are doing wrong are the people spying on their own people and lying to us about it. So Donald Trump came into office with a bang. He signed a ton of executive orders just right off the bat. He declared an emergency at the border, which is a good thing. There's definitely far too many people flooding across the border. You don't have a sovereign nation if your border is porous, period. You just don't. There's no such thing as being a sovereign nation without a border. He designated the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which they are. Now, this is sort of a two-sided one, because you can argue that they are indeed terrorist organizations, and they certainly behave as them. They behead people, they kidnap people, they torture people, like especially in Mexico and in border towns. There was even some reports recently that they had started taking over Indian reservations in places like Arizona and New Mexico, which is a scary thought to have. But by designating them a terrorist organization, it also will allow Donald Trump to declare war, or at least mobilize troops against and go into Mexico. I'm not sure about that one. He did announce that he will reinstate all members of the military that are expelled due to COVID vaccine mandate, and they will receive full back pay. I've been talking about this for 3 years now. I told you guys there were going to be lawsuits again for all those people who got fired from their jobs because they wouldn't get the vaccine. I told you guys that eventually this was going to come back to bite all of these people in the behind, and it has. We talked about a few months ago some of the lawsuits. One was in Detroit, I believe, where people had successfully sued their employer for firing them for refusing to get vaccinated under religious grounds and things like that. I knew this was going to happen. And we saw, even in places like California, there were a lot of firefighters who quit because they didn't want to get vaccinated. We saw in Chicago, a lot of police officers quit because they didn't want to get vaccinated. They didn't want to get the COVID vaccine. They didn't want to be susceptible to things like myocarditis, the type of myocarditis and the side effects of the vaccine, which was their choice. Once we knew that you could catch the virus and spread the virus whether you were vaccinated or not, it became an individual decision of individual liberty. And many people completely took away people's individual liberty by forcing them to get an experimental vaccine. So I knew that, and expect a lot more of this as well. Expect a lot more people to sue over how they were treated during the pandemic. Police officers in New York also, workers in New York also won some lawsuits against against the city of New York. Like I said, I believe we covered that about 2 or 3 months ago. Check out Scott Cannon Radio on Scott Cannon Radio on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll be able to find the videos where I talk about that. Also, the military will be directed to construct a new phase of the border wall. You know, I mean, this was pretty obvious. Joe Biden even continued building the wall. So since Joe Biden continued to build the wall, and the Democrats, most of them claim to be against it, I think it's pretty obvious that once Trump got back in there, we were going to go back to constructing the wall. He said he was going to prevent trans people from joining the military. I mean, I can see that. You know, I'm pro letting adults be adults in a free country. This is America. If you as a grown man or woman wants to cosplay as another gender or sex, that's your business. But do we as a society have to go along with it? I personally don't believe so. I don't think we have to go along with it. You can do what you want, but we have a right to not go along with it as well and see it as sort of mental illness. Now, I believe we should have compassion for those people. You know, we should encourage them to get help. But I don't think we should be forced to play along. And the Biden administration was very tolerant, even put, I forget what the person's name was. I believe it was Rachel, let me see. Yeah, Rachel, they had Rachel Levine, the Biden administration, who was the former Assistant Secretary for Health in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, who was a transgender person. You know, I don't know if I want somebody who is suffering from gender dysphoria to tell me about health. That's just me, you know. But hey, you know, this is a big part of the reason why Donald Trump is back in there, because the Democrats sort of entertained a lot of this stuff that I believe they probably shouldn't have. Trump declared a national energy emergency, which sounds like, oh, well, he's just gonna do what it takes to get for us to have more oil and coal and all those other things. But really, they're just going to drill. They're going to take the restrictions off of any type of drilling and any type of fracking, regardless of the effect that it has on the planet. Now, we're seeing the catastrophic effects in places like California, who just had the worst wildfires they've ever had in Southern California. We're seeing, catastrophic flooding in places where you just don't see catastrophic flooding, like in Asheville, North Carolina, which isn't even on the coast. It's hundreds of miles inland. And yet they still, the town was basically destroyed by a flood. We're seeing it in places, Florida. A lot of those cities, it's arguable that Miami might actually be underwater by the next century. And so, you know, essentially Trump is saying, damn the restrictions on drilling and fracking and all these things, you know, whatever it takes to get more energy, then so be it. I mean, to keep it 100, it might already be too late to make any real adjustments to stop climate change from happening anyway. Like, we might already be past the point of no return. So I don't know about that one. He got rid of the pandemic era rule that allowed federal workers to work at home. He's saying they have to return to work in person. A lot of downtowns were suffering because workers weren't coming into work anymore. They were staying at home. And there was a lot of people who are climate activists who were saying, yeah, this is better because then people don't have to gas up their cars and they don't have to travel all the way to the office anymore. They can just work from home. Well, he's getting rid of that. He's pausing all offshore wind leases. Oh, this one. Ending DEI hiring practices in federal government, merit only. Personally, a lot of this is nonsense. The idea that America has ever been about merit in itself is pretty laughable. Donald Trump himself is a product of nepotism and cronyism. Let's just be real. He's a nepo baby, and he's a shady businessman. And the idea that people like Mike Brown, who was put in charge of FEMA because he was George W. Bush's friend, was there because of merit. This is really just saying, stop hiring blacks and Hispanics. That's mostly what this is about. You know. Now, they might let a few crony Republican black people, a few crony Republican Hispanics or Middle Easterners or whatever get in there. But for mostly it will be back to the good old boy network, where rich and politically well-connected people will get all these jobs, whether they are qualified for them or not. America's never been about merit, folks. Between 60 and 80% of jobs in America are filled because of personal relationships. Between 60 and 80%. Personal relationships is how between 60 and 80% of people get their jobs in America. It's about who you know. It's always been about who you know. That's not merit, but they have no problem with that. They, you know, a lot of right-wingers have thrown a crap fit about affirmative action and DEI, but none of those people have filed any lawsuits whatsoever about the legacy students at these universities who were there because their parents paid their, paid their way in or got in because their parents gave money to the university or because their parents were students at the university. That's not merit either. And they never sued about that because it's not really about merit. It's just about keeping blacks and Hispanics and you know, indigenous people out. Let's just be real here. He withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. You could see that coming. You know, once he started saying drill, baby, drill, you could see that that we weren't long for the Paris Climate Accord. He ordered every agency to remove all federal actions increasing costs for Americans via deregulation. So once again, you know, going back to Jimmy Carter and really especially Ronald Reagan, this has pretty much been the direction that we've been going in the last 45 or so years, where we just deregulate. Carter started with the trucking industry. Reagan started with the airline industry, where, again, there are regulations for a reason. You want to know why planes keep crashing out of the sky? A lack of regulations. This is why this keeps happening. But big corporations hate regulations because that means that they have to actually take time out of making money to worry about how things affect their workers or affect the earth or affect their clients, the customers. And they don't want to think about the customers, and they don't want to think about the climate, and they don't want to think about their workers. They just want to make money, and that's all that matters to them. He left the World Health Organization, which is something you could also see coming. The WHO really botched the response to COVID. We talked about that here. And you know, really one thing that's pretty funny about all this is that Trump was down with all this at the beginning. Obviously, Project Warp Speed was his idea. He's the one who, you know, the COVID vaccine was developed under him. Now he tries to sort of play it off like he wasn't with the vaccine and he wasn't with the COVID restrictions. He was absolutely with it at the beginning. But, you know, Trump is somebody who goes with where the wind blows. He's very malleable. He has no views or opinions of his own, really. He has very few views and opinions of his own. He just goes by who is closest to him at any given time. And so I think once he saw that people were starting to question the efficacy and the safety of the vaccine and started criticizing the World Health Organization, then he jumps on that bandwagon as well. Though I will say, I will give Trump credit. He still he is ride or die with that vaccine. You know, he's like he owns that. He's like, no, it's the greatest vaccine in the history of the world. What are you talking about? You know, that's one thing. He will not ever admit that he makes a mistake. That's just who Donald Trump is. He will never, ever admit that he's ever done anything wrong. He will never admit any guilt. And it usually works out for him. He has this ability to convince people that he didn't do something that we all know he did. One thing I did like, I'm glad he pardoned Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht was the founder of this website called the Silk Road, which is basically an online commerce site. And the reason that a lot of people used it to, you know, sell drugs or weapons or whatever, and they said that because it was like eBay. It'd be like if everything that was sold on eBay by the private sellers on eBay or Amazon could get the people would get Amazon or eBay in trouble themselves. And Ross Ulbricht ended up getting like a life sentence, you know, which was crazy. And so, you know, Ross Ulbricht pardoned him. I think that was good in terms of freedom. You know, at a certain point, you know, people have to, you know, have, you know, you can't really blame everybody for what other people choose to use a platform. If people choose to misuse a platform, it's not necessarily your fault. Just like Mark Zuckerberg isn't responsible for every Yahoo who says something stupid on Facebook. And you can't make him responsible for every Yahoo who says something stupid on Facebook. You can't blame Elon Musk for every moron who says or does something on Twitter. That would have had huge implications for freedom in this country and freedom of speech particularly. And so he pardoned Ross Ulbricht. Also, he rescinded an order by Joe Biden that was aimed at lowering prescription drug prices, including a cap on monthly insulin costs. That means that a lot of people are going to be paying a lot more for insulin very soon. A lot of y'all are going to be, if you're a diabetic, you're going to be paying a lot more for insulin very soon, especially out of pocket. He also suspended the security clearances of 51 former intelligence community officials who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story when they said it was Russian disinformation. They purposely lied. He rescinded the security clearances of 51 former intelligence community officials. Wow. You know, personally, I agree with that. It was pretty obvious that the FBI and the CIA were colluding to hide something when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop story. And, you know, again, it just sort of goes back to this pattern that we've seen with the FBI, with the CIA, with these entities that have been politicized, and they're not supposed to be politicized. They literally, knowingly lied. He rescinded the security detail of Anthony Fauci, of John Bolton, and Mike Pompeo. One thing he definitely promised to do that I'm glad that he's doing it. I hope he's completely serious about it. He seemed to have signed something saying that he was going to do this. But he said that he was going to declassify the JFK, RFK, and MLK records. That is something that, again, I'm surprised that there wasn't more pressure for Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden to do these types of things years ago. But Trump is saying that he is going to do it. Hopefully we will find out, you know, who killed these people in great detail. And I have my doubts. I think there'll be a lot of redacted information in those files. But hopefully, you know, hopefully I'm wrong here. He also signed an executive order to end birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants. I've been calling for this for a long time. The birthright citizenship. Well, first of all, we're only one of 2 countries in NATO that have unrestricted birthright citizenship. It is us, and it is Canada, I believe. Yeah, us and Canada. We're the only 2 NATO countries out of all those countries that have unrestricted birthright citizenship. Every other country has conditional citizenship. Now, that law came about because legacy black Americans, like myself, were not at one point considered American citizens. Even though our slave ancestors built the country and were the economic engine for America, black Americans, legacy black Americans, were not considered American citizens. And so the whole birthright citizenship clause in the Constitution was supposed to rectify that. It was not there for people to come from all over the world and drop their anchor babies on us so that we have to pay for them to go to school and we have to pay for whatever, and they get to have all the benefits of American citizenship. It was not supposed to be for them. It's for us, legacy black Americans. And like I said, we're the only country along with Canada that even has this unrestricted birthright citizenship in NATO. Of all the wealthy NATO, I think it's 40 countries. Let me see how many countries are in NATO. NATO is how many countries are in NATO? 30 countries in NATO. 32 countries in NATO. It's only us and Canada that have unrestricted birthright citizenship. So that means that if you're in Albania, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Spain, the United Kingdom, none of those countries have unrestricted birthright citizenship. Just us. Just us. That was meant for legacy black Americans. That was meant for legacy black Americans. Not for everybody else, just us. Now, one thing, the last thing I want to talk about is an extremely scary thing that Trump did this week. Was he empowered Larry Ellison, who is I think the founder of Oracle, to bring about Project Stargate. It is part of a joint venture with Larry Ellison that talks about how Americans will have to be on their best behavior with an AI surveillance system. Now, you're going to have to deal with me because we had technical difficulties at the station. For some reason today, I don't know why none of my videos will play on the computer, but but I want you to hear what Larry Ellison himself, how creepy this is, out of the mouth of Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle himself.
The police will be on their best behavior because
let me start this. Let me start it over.
Everything's going on. Will be on their best behavior. Will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras, it's AI that's looking at the camera. No, you can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be immediately, that's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm's going to go off, it's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. We just, if there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop. A drone goes out there and get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
Wow. Hopefully that picked up. Like I said, we had technical difficulties. None of the videos would play on the computer, but that's Larry Ellison, Oracle's Larry Ellison, talking about deploying drones and AI to essentially keep all of us under a system of mass surveillance at all times. This is a part of, this is not, if you want to fearmonger about something Donald Trump is doing, this is it. And this has always been an issue that I've had with MSNBC and CNN and all the liberals in the media and even on this station. They never fearmonger about this type of stuff. They'll talk your ears off about Russiagate or something. Or they'll talk about, oh my God, Donald Trump said something racist, or this is literally talking about doing away freedom as we know it in this country. If you have AI, complete AI censorship, there is no freedom in America. And drones, he's talking about having drones deployed at all times. Wow. That is scary. That is scary. But I guarantee the corporate media isn't really fear-mongering about that. They're probably fear-mongering about something else. Let me get this caller. Hello, caller. What's up?
Well, hey, great show. How you doing? Victor here.
Oh, it's all good, brother.
Hey, I'm just trying to say, I think we've been talking about this. I think I get in a lot of trouble by talking about what you're talking about.
Yes.
Really. It's all good, though, because that's what, I mean.
Good trouble.
You can't,
it's good trouble.
What's that?
It's good trouble.
Man. You know what I learned when I lived in Jamaica?
What?
If you don't hear, you'll feel. If you don't listen to the messages, you'll wind up feeling it.
Yep.
And I think we're about to get a sensation of that feeling.
I think you're right.
Yeah, you know, when I think of all the stuff, like, I mean, I've been watching this stuff. I come back from Nam in 70. I come back from Vietnam, you know, and I've been, I've had a few careers, and I've been watching this stuff forever in a day. And my first wife about drove her crazy, me kind of studying C-SPAN. I mean, that's public broadcasting for learning about our civic government.
Right, right.
I did that ad nauseum. And most folks, for probably 15 years later, never even knew what it was.
Wow.
And it's kind of like taking a course in American civics. And people are almost repelled by the idea. But when you talk about all those stuff you're talking about, because they're real as the breeze, But the idea that we don't have money to do things to help American people.
That's a lie.
That's an absolute bogus lie, because it's like our debt that we talk about, that $36 trillion, why we can't have streetlights or schools.
Mm-hmm.
No. The idea that money, that debt actually represents collateral to the folks that control things.
Yep.
And so there's not a matter of can we afford it. And so we have this great schism here. We think it's all about, let's clean up the debt. And, oh, my God, let me shame you because you caused debt, or you're asking the country to spend tax dollars. Well, guess what? Listen here. If the tax dollars were that vital to these fellows, they'd be raising their taxes too.
Yep.
But since they're irrelevant, that's why a guy like this new president can run on an argument as, I don't pay taxes.
No.
Join my club. Right?
Right. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. That was a big part of when Trump ran the first time. He said, I know the system is rigged because I use it. I know politicians are corrupt because I buy them. I gave money to Hillary.
That's right. I mean, now, this has been interesting. Now, watching what happened to President Nixon, who happened to have passed a lot of legislation that was actually good for our environment. But the thing is, to maintain power, they went to the Southern strategy that uses race, ethnicity, to promote their religiosity. And before you know it, here comes Ronald Reagan telling you that the government is really your problem, and we'll fix it all by taking away those nasty things that Roosevelt did.
Yep.
To help our country revitalize itself.
Yep.
And how do you think we came up with the money to pay for World War II less than 10 years after the Great Depression, when people were in soup lines? Right? And like we're still, if you look at the cities, most cities look like they're still in the 1970s or 80s.
Yeah, they do.
And you go anywhere else in the world, and it looks like the 21st century is blossoming.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, brother.
You're welcome. Thanks for your show.
It's all good.
Thank you.
All right, folks. You hear the music? That means it's time to go to another break. And when we get back, it'll be time for the Happy Abbies. We'll be right back after these.